Hello and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. On the show, I interview peak performing innovators in the creative, social impact, and earth conservation spaces who are working to change the world. This episode is brought to you by Brain FM, which combines the best of music and neuroscience to help you relax, focus, meditate, and even sleep. And if you're liking the show, I would love it if you'd buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/IsoldeT. See the show notes for details. And now, let's get on with the show. Hello, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg, and I'm super happy that you're here. I am doing this week Chapter 14 of my exclusive Speak From Within audiobook recording. You can listen to the audiobook for free if you listen every Thursday. You can go back and listen from the very beginning a number of Thursdays ago. And once this session is set up and complete, I'm going to be removing these podcast episodes, I want to let you know, and putting them as the audiobook for on my website. And the reason for that is because I realized I wasn't doing the audiobook recording and I needed to, right? So this is my way of giving to you if you want it for free right now, or if you want to wait and support me in my writing and in the audiobook and buy the audiobook later too, that would be amazing. You're going to be able to find it at isoldet.com. Alrighty, let's get to Chapter 14, Listen and Learn. When you're engaged in public speaking, your listening and perception skills are more important than your speaking skills. Don't get me wrong, speaking skills are crucial. What you say, how you say it, and the way you frame both, physically, emotionally, and psychologically, makes a huge difference. However, how you listen is crucial to knowing your role. If someone needs a shoulder to lean on, you can't come in like a freight train. You must sense what they need and then give it to them in the way they need it. Examine your perception skills. It doesn't have to be in a public speaking situation or an interview or any other kind of speaking event. Rather, test your abilities on the people closest to you. Spend time listening and see what you pick up below the surface. That's where true communication happens. A few years ago, I was at a festival. I decided that I would spend almost no time talking about myself. Instead, I would focus all of my attention on the people I met. I would plumb the depths and see what treasures I could find. Every time I met a new person, I spent every moment being curious, asking questions, and listening. I seldom talked. The only talking I did for 5 days was to encourage other people to talk about themselves. And you know what? Dozens of people told me that I was a brilliant conversationalist. How funny, since I said almost nothing. For them, having a skilled listener made them feel that they were speaking to someone adept in the communication arts. I'll be honest, while I love technology and I respect everything that it does for us, I believe that it has also created a certain amount of isolation. We spend a lot of time putting out or consuming content on social media. We spend an incredible amount of time presenting a facade of who we might want to be rather than who we actually are in the moment. And we do it with a keyboard or a phone. Seldom do we see each other face to face, even in our most intimate interactions. As a result, we're not honing our skills. In fact, our abilities around awareness and perception are decreasing. On top of that, what we see on social media might not be authentic. It might just be an image of the life the poster wants us to believe they have. Because it comes through via a screen, we are once removed from presence and intimacy. We have to guess what someone is thinking or feeling behind the facade of their latest status update. So when we try to perceive, evaluate, and react to stimuli, we don't have a lot to go on. That makes me nervous. It makes room for less kindness in the world. If we can be removed from the frailty and the vulnerability of others, we can ignore their needs and even their pain. But if we want to be authentic communicators, we cannot afford to ignore anyone's vulnerability, especially our own. Mission: eye to eye. Here's another exercise. You can try this with a trusted friend, or you can do it by yourself with a mirror. It's simple but tricky. Sit with your friend and look into each other's eyes. Do nothing else. Sit, breathe, and gaze into each other's eyes. Assess how you feel. See what comes up for you as you engage with one another. I'll bet that after just a few minutes, one of you will begin to giggle. Your eyes will water. You'll have an itch on your nose, or you will laugh because you're looking at someone else's face for no good reason. Once you get past the laughter phase, you might notice that something more tender bubbles up. You might notice something quieter, softer, and more fragile extends between you and your partner. Explore it for a moment. See how you feel to sit together and share this tender moment. Shortly after that, you might giggle again, but I guarantee you will know each other a little better, and you will love each other a little more. If you decide to do this exercise on your own, find a quiet time at home. Stand in front of the bathroom mirror, or if you have another, sit in front of it and stare into your own eyes. Try to work through the "I feel stupid" thoughts that will spring up. Give yourself permission to admire yourself. In fact, pay yourself a compliment. For many of us, that's easy to do on the surface. It's much harder to go deep, locate that fragile place, and connect with it. Find something about your face that appeals to you and either think it or say it out loud. It can be something as simple as, "I like your hair today," or "You have a nice smile." Don't be afraid to pay yourself a real gem. You deserve it. You are entitled to love and admiration and appreciation. Sometimes in the hustle and bustle of our daily lives, we forget that we are worthwhile, deserving, and lovable beings. And here's one of the biggest secrets of the universe. The more we feel like we're worthwhile, deserving, and lovable, the more we will extend those feelings to others when we communicate with them. Those feelings will bring us peace, joy, and every good little thing. I could devote an entire book to the paying of a compliment and how it affects both the surface and the innermost being of the person who receives it. I could also talk about how much it brings to the person who gives it. When you find the strength and the vulnerability within yourself to take a chance and pay a compliment, to extend yourself, to offer up kind or admiring words unsolicited, you are doing a very brave and courageous thing. I know. I do it every day. The Compliment Project. Every day that I am out and about, I pay a random stranger a compliment. I try to remain observant of the people around me because it's a good idea to know who is where, and a few years ago, I took it a step further. When something strikes me about a person, I will comment on it and compliment them with no ulterior motive other than to acknowledge that I think something about them is wonderful. They might be in line at the coffee shop. We might both be at the post office. It doesn't matter where we are. If I notice that someone has a great smile or lovely eyes or is wearing a cool outfit, I point it out and let them know I think they're terrific. And here's the thing. If you extend yourself to someone, they might accept it with honesty and maybe even gratitude. Or they might rebuff and ridicule you. If you maintain your composure and don't give up or quit, you will build and increase your sense of self. Thus, the Compliment Project serves multiple purposes. It brightens other people's days and it helps me stretch and grow. These compliments I've paid over the years have never been rebuffed. I've never had anyone tell me I was crazy or tell me to stop coming on to them or any other of the possible responses you might receive when paying a stranger a compliment out of the blue. It's possible that something like that will happen. In fact, I'm sure it will happen. So I recognize that someone will react badly someday, and I need to know how to deal with that. However, the compliments portion of our show has always resulted in eyes opening a little wider and a big smile and usually some sort of a surprised, "Thank you." Why are they surprised? I think it's because we are no longer used to hearing compliments. We're more used to hearing insults, criticism, or critique, so a compliment knocks us for a loop. Ideally, I would like to bring that practice back as a daily occurrence. I want it to be so commonplace that we no longer even think about responding with scorn or rejection. Rather, we build everyone up until we all feel deserving of the compliments. Then, when someone pays us one, instead of being shocked, amazed, or surprised, we're able to take it in and say a sincere thank you. I think we deserve it, don't you? And yes, I will add that this must be done with pure intent. We ought not to use it as a come-on. If you have that energy inside you as you go to pay the compliment, don't do it. Move on. This compliment should be from the heart, from your spirit to theirs. It's not a stop on the flirting train. In fact, right after you pay the compliment to someone, move along. This isn't about flirting or hooking up with anyone. This is about connecting with someone on a deeper level. You let them know you appreciate them, and then you walk right past them so you can both live your lives enriched by the experience and free of any other expectations. It ought to start small, though. I think we could start it with compliments to ourselves. That look in the mirror and tell yourself you're fabulous exercise, it's harder than it seems. Sure, it's easy to do in a perfunctory way. It's easier to stand there and say the words, "You're beautiful," or "You're gorgeous," or "You're intelligent," or "You are lovable." But to say it to yourself and mean it, that's a different story. It can take some of us weeks, months, or years to get to where we can pay ourselves a compliment and accept it. And here's another secret no one tells you. It is much, much easier to sincerely compliment someone else, anyone else, than it is to compliment ourselves. Now, we don't know how the person we compliment actually reacts. They might say pish and brush the words aside, or it might make them pause long enough for a bit of that intention to seep in. I would say the second hardest thing in that interaction is to take the compliment in. The easiest, to say it. We do have to get over some blocks on that. We do have to figure out how to say those words without any fear, expectation, judgment, or even jealousy. We have to get to a place where we can remark on our admiration for someone else's qualities without feeling a pinch of either guilt or sorrow that we either don't feel that way or that we weren't on the receiving end. Because the truth is, receiving compliments feels good, even if it feels odd. If someone takes the time to do that for us authentically and without an ulterior motive, that might be a beautiful thing. What I'm describing here is a way for all of us to develop a connection through positive means. We must release any expectations of something more coming from the interaction. It is a means of connecting us on a platonic yet universal level. I use it as a sort of meditative practice because it allows me to maintain an awareness of the people around me and to remain in an attitude of thoughtful presence and joy when I pay compliments. We also have to release the fear of being rebuffed, because there's a flip side to this coin, and I'm going to tell you about it. I'm one of those people who believes in being helpful. Sometimes when you're trying to be helpful and trying to communicate and to offer whatever aid you can, you'll be rebuffed and ridiculed. You have to be prepared to handle those situations, both as they're happening and in your soul afterward. Here's my story about that. A few years ago, I was at a Ruby Tuesdays standing in line at the salad bar. A father and son were in line directly in front of me. For those of you who might not know, Ruby Tuesdays has big television screens that show various sports events or news channels. The father and son were complaining as we went through the line. They were bummed that their game, the one they wanted to watch, was not the one being televised on the screen where they were sitting. "Excuse me," I said, "I couldn't help but overhear. I'm sure that if you ask your waiter, they'd be happy to change the channel for you to one that has your game on it." I offered the advice because I knew that they would be willing to change channels. I'd asked them before myself. "What the fuck are you doing listening to our conversation?" the father snarled. "Mind your own goddamn business." "I was trying to help," I said. "I don't need any of your damn help," he said. Do you want to know what saddened me the most? He did this in front of his teenage son. No, wait, I just lied to you. Here's the thing that upset me the most. It was the son's response. He looked at his father with adoration in his eyes and he said, "I love you, Dad." As a person, I weep for the son. As a communicator, I'm shocked at the lessons that father was teaching his child. Honest communication and compassion will be challenging for him as he grows into a man. He will have trouble gaining other people's trust. Sure, this blustery and quick-to-anger style might win him some short-term gains, but I'll bet dollars to donuts that he'll have a tough time finding true happiness and success in the long run. Some people might believe in him to begin with, but they'll move along once they learn his values. The entrepreneur Malcolm Forbes once said, "You can easily judge the character of a man by how he treats those who can do nothing for him." It appears to me that this child will face some harsh realities if he treats people the way his father is teaching him to. Honestly, that moment saddened me, and it stunted my desire to interact with strangers for a few weeks. I hesitated to help people when I saw their need. I usually get involved when it looks like someone needs help because I think we can all use a helping hand. But for those few weeks, I stopped. I stopped because a part of me feared a repeat of what had happened. But then I realized that I had been helping strangers for years, and this was the only time it had caused me pain. Every other time, the people I tried to aid met me without anger. Sometimes they accepted my help, sometimes they didn't. But no one had ever been so harsh and rude. The problem wasn't with me or my desire to help others. The problem lay with that man and his son. I was sorry I couldn't help them, but I also couldn't hold on to the pain the interaction had caused. I decided that the best way for me to feel better about that entire situation was to turn right around and try to help someone else. I adhere to the notion that if I fall off a bike, I have to get right back on and start pedaling. And here's how I did just that. A few weeks later, my husband and I had stopped at a small store along MacArthur Boulevard in Washington, D.C., an area where there are few stores. A man and his son walked in right after us. The man staggered to the cashier and asked if they had any Advil. He had a terrible headache and was clearly suffering. "No, we don't carry anything like that," the cashier responded. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small container of tablets. "Here you go, sir." I extended the pill box toward him. "What? No, I can't take your Advil," he said. "Please," I said, "take it. I know what it's like to be in that kind of pain." "Yeah, she does this kind of thing," my husband said to him, "so you should just take them." "Thank you." The man accepted the tablets and downed them. "No problem," I answered. And you know what? He wasn't the only one who felt better. Trustworthy selflessness. At its core, communication requires a sort of trustworthy selflessness. We must put our own needs and desire to express ourselves second to the needs of those with whom we're communicating. We must listen and perceive. We must also empathize. We must be able to put ourselves in the shoes of the people who are our audience. Their number doesn't matter. If we're going to communicate with them on that most important of levels, we will need to connect, or it won't work. Let me rephrase that. It might work in the short term, but in the long term, the fakers will lose. So be true to yourself and to your audience. Use your perceptive skills to connect, and then be authentic in your dealings with them. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, Chapter 14 of my book, Speak From Within. I am loving doing this because you know what? I actually haven't read the book out loud in years, not since before it got published. So it's really cool. That's a little bit of advice from me to you. If you're a writer, make sure that you read your book out loud, whatever you're writing, your article, your post, whatever it is, read it out loud because it will let you know how it sounds and how other people might make it sound. And Tamsen Webster, if you happen to listen to this episode, I am sending you a big shout out. Tamsen Webster is an author who's going to be on the show in just a little while. And her book, Find Your Red Thread, is phenomenal. I highly recommend you go get it. She talks about something that I think is really important about storytelling and communication. She says that you have to tell your story the way other people need to hear it in their own heads. That's almost verbatim. It's a paraphrase, but it's almost verbatim, like the second sentence in the book. And when I read that, I went, truism. That's awesome. That's fantastic. So yeah, I don't have any affiliation with Tamsen other than I think she's fabulous, but I highly recommend her book, Find Your Red Thread. Check it out. All right, cool. I am super excited that you listened to this episode. It was brought to you by Brain FM, as always, my favorite app. If you want to try it, you certainly can. There's a free trial if you go to brain.fm/innovative mindset. And you can get a 20% off coupon if you use my little coupon code, Innovative Mindset, all one word. And yeah, try it. I love it. I use it to meditate. Just used it to meditate this morning. I use it when I'm writing. It helps manage the sort of neuro flow, if you will, that you go through when you're doing anything creative. But I also use it for admin work and accounting and bookkeeping and all of that. It helps keep my head on straight, and I love it for that. So if you decide you want to try it, because I'm an affiliate, of course, I get a little kickback if you do try it, and I find it highly worthwhile. It makes things just a ton easier. All right. I hope you enjoyed the episode. This is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Innovative Mindset Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, do me a favor, leave a review. It would mean the world to me if either on Spotify you left it a few stars or on Apple Podcasts you left a review of what you think of the show. I would really appreciate it. It helps me know what to do differently or better or even worse. Until next time, I remind you to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2021. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, remember to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind.